the best tasting radio show in all of South Louisiana. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffany Deku. Here we talk about all the food happenings around Acadiana. If you like food, tune in. You might learn something new. Man, it has been heated in this booth.
Yes.
We have a really cool guest tonight, Amy Stearns, who is a professor of criminal justice at UL, and we're going to be talking about prison food a little later in the show.
I'm so stoked.
I am too. I've been so excited for this. When she approached me, I was like, yes, this is happening. This is totally happening. But first, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The biscuit in the room.
Yeah, the biscuit in the room.
So it's not necessarily food related, but it is Lafayette related. So on last night's episode of SNL, AOC got a shout out. And so when you see the logo come up, you're like, oh my God, that's cool. And then you hear Lafayette. And I was like, ooh, it starts.
A Chick-fil-A.
It starts. So if you're not familiar, on SNL last night, they had a skit. It was a Lafayette skit. AOC Media was involved, and it was about a show on AOC called Bayou Benny's Liberal Lagniappe.
Oh, yes.
And they also mispronounced Lagniappe a whole lot. And it was pretty...
But they used it properly, at least.
Yeah. Yes. I'm on the fence on whether it was funny or not. I did laugh a lot, and we're not going to go into all of this on the show, Bob. But there's a camp out there in Lafayette that is super excited that Lafayette got a shout out on SNL, and then there is another camp out there that is incredibly offended by how, as someone said, hillbilly it made us all sound.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I want to talk about is, okay, first off, the host, Benny, was dressed like Colonel Sanders.
You the devil, Colonel Sanders.
Which is basically a resurrection of the professor at what was, I guess, UL and the Waterboy. So I felt like this was a whole Waterboy skit. Yeah, okay. The professor in UL was Colonel Sanders.
Yes,
we're just going to say that.
Exactly.
Like he was dressed the exact same way. He sounded the same way, except like he didn't have the white hair like Colonel Sanders.
And I don't look like that, for the record.
Right.
Exactly.
She does not look like Colonel Sanders in the studio right now. So that was my one point. I was like, why does the host or the professor always look like Colonel Sanders in these skits?
Yeah.
And Colonel Sanders isn't even Cajun. He's supposed to be Southern, and I don't even think he's really Southern. There's like a whole history with Colonel Sanders.
It's also basically the same trope of the chicken lawyer from Futurama.
Right. Where they wear like the suit with like, they don't even have like a tie. It's like a string tie kind of thing. And I always associate that with like antebellum South. Yeah. That's exactly how they dress, like an antebellum South. They also have names, these very like proper French, which you would think was Cajun names, but they're really French names that they always use in these skits, like Boucher from The Waterboy. I don't know any Bouchers.
Fair.
I know a lot of Broussards.
Yeah.
I know a lot of Duyons. I know a lot of Decous, Burrells.
Ouais.
So, if we wanted to be more like, it was really from Lafayette. Get some better names. Also, I don't know why in this day and age we still can't get a proper Cajun accent out of anyone. Now, the point was made that it was supposed to be overly exaggerated for satire.
It is satire.
But that just put me on the rant of movies in general. Yeah. Like, we can't get
I still say the only good Cajun accent I've ever heard is Matthew McConaughey in True Detective.
See, and I don't remember that. And honestly, we were talking about it. I feel like Bobby Boucher's accent, Adam Sandler's accent, was better than what was on the skit for Saturday Night Live. So, and then you were pointing out that I didn't even remember this, that Bobby Boucher was a character on SNL.
Yeah, it was
on the Weekend Update.
Spinoff of Adam Sandler's Cajun Man.
Yeah, and that's really like, woo,
Yeah, he's got the straw palmetto hat, and the red suspenders.
Yeah, he's like real exaggerated.
Yes.
But yeah, so I didn't realize that either. But if you didn't, there was also, an alligator that went to Tulane. I mean, why he didn't go to UL?
Yeah, seriously.
But you know what though? UL doesn't have a law school, so Tulane does make sense.
Good point.
He did. He did
they
graduate.
Did do some research there.
Magna cum laude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The chili pepper that was
with the sunglasses
that
on.
was so obviously the old UL mascot.
Yes.
And I was like, I can't stand it. I said, what is happening here? Okay, and then the other point that I wanted to make is that Donald Trump was a Popeye's biscuit.
Yes.
Like, that was so obviously a Popeye's biscuit.
They couldn't have made it better. Like, if they couldn't have done it better if they wanted to.
And now I have the way that they were screaming biscuit ingrained in my brain, that my new kitten that I've adopted's name is Biscuit, and I think I'm going to be yelling it like that.
Get that big old biscuit out of here.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be, just how I say it. So love it or hate it, we did get a shout out. I do think it's pretty cool. I mean, they had AOC's logo and everything, so they did research on that. So I'm really curious how the writers came up with that. Like, what was the story behind that specific skit?
I'm not sure.
Maybe there'll be more. Maybe that we're gonna, this is gonna turn into Disney Gumbo 2018. This will be SNL, the SNL incident 2018, and that they'll cause such an uproar that maybe we'll get some backstory of how the skit came to be. Because I mean, AOC got a shout out. That's the important thing there. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm on the fence. Like, I literally cannot stop laughing, and I'm laughing at you now making fun of it.
Well, I'm in tears laughing at the thing.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah,
it is something. Moving on. Festival Caribbean was this weekend.
Yes, it was.
We went out today, and we got. So the Cajun table was new this year.
Okay.
And they had turtle tasso sauce piquant.
Yeah.
Which was delicious. You had some.
Yeah.
You survived.
My first turtle
We learned
experience.
that you could have turtle. Because it is apparently not a seafood.
Yeah.
It could be.
I know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have iodine.
Yeah. So we did go with that. And then we got from Taco Sisters the Dirty Dip, which is something that that's like a festival must for me. So if you're not familiar, it's just like refried beans and ground beef and cheese and like this creamy sauce on it and tomatoes. And then they serve it with Zapp's potato chips. So that's what I really enjoy about it. But we had the genius idea of going to Charlie T's and getting cracklins and dipping the cracklins in the Dirty Dip. We just upped our Dirty Dip Festival Caribbean experience.
Yeah.
And it was worth it.
Sounds awesome.
Although Bob said the cracklin was like $1 a cracklin.
Almost.
Yeah.
Worth it, though.
They are really good crackling, I have to admit.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of cracklin happening in that bag. And then I introduced you to Bread and Circus yesterday.
Yes.
If you guys have never been to Bread and Circus, I recommend going for happy hour. They do it Tuesday through Saturday, 4 to 6, and then it's all night on Wednesdays, and the pizzas are half off.
Yeah.
So it's a great time to go out there and check it out. We got a pizza. We got the garlic knots, which I think we both
so good.
Were obsessed with the garlic knots. It comes with this cheese dipping sauce, and I was using my finger and to scoop out the rest of the cheese when we ran out of garlic knots. I'll admit it.
And I made the rookie mistake. In the garlic knots, there is a whole head of garlic.
And I told you the story. So before he even did it, I was telling him that I had ordered it through Waiter one night. And I was like going to town on him. And then all of a sudden I got one and I was like, ooh, this tastes real weird. I said, it tastes like paper. And then I realized it was like a whole garlic. Like they take the garlic and they slice it in half and then they roast it. And it's meant like you can scoop the garlic out and put it on the knots too. And I was like, I ate a thing of garlic. Like I will kill a vampire at any moment.
It was good though.
And you did the same thing. You were like, this looks like the perfect garlic knot. And I was like, it's garlic, Bob. It's garlic. And you still went for it. You still ate a little piece.
I love garlic.
Yeah, I do too. Like it's fine. But I mean, if you're not prepared, and it was like in the middle of everything else, so it was really hard to see.
Yeah.
But we got the eggplant Norma The pizza, it had eggplant on it and cheese. Yeah. And oh man. And then I had the crust. With the crust, I dipped it in the cheese sauce.
Yes.
So good. So if you guys, Happy Hour Bread and Circus, check it out. Also want to mention that South Bend Poke is opening tomorrow. First 25 people in line get free poke for a week. The next 75 in line get a free poke bowl their next visit. So Bob's already said he's camping out.
Yep.
So go and check it out. Also want to give shout out to Tons in Broussard. I had their burger for the first time. I drug Bob away from Bios and we had lunch at Tons and I had a burger and it was delicious.
Yeah.
And I would like to go back and have that burger. Their breakfast is also killer over there. So if you've never been, check them out. And then also Avec Bacon. I had a candied bacon experience there.
Yeah.
Where he sent me a little sussy to go with my sandwich that I had ordered. And it tastes like a candy bar of bacon. It's so delicious. And I asked him if you can get the candied bacon on the sandwiches. And he said yes for a slightly increased fee. So my suggestion to you, because I got the chicken Cobb sandwich that had like chicken and an egg and bacon, get the candied bacon and take your sandwich up a notch.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. We are going to take our first break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking with Amy Stearns. So come back to us. It is the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
From Boudin to the best burgers Acadiana has to offer, it's the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffany Deku, and we are talking with Amy Stearns, who is a criminal justice professor at UL, who has been doing food research into prison food, specifically the food that the inmates make in their cells. And she's actually done some research and collected some recipes from the female inmates here at LPCC.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
When you approached me about coming on the show, I said, yes, absolutely. That is so fascinating to me because a couple of months ago on The Sporkful, which is a food podcast that I listen to, they had the author of Prison Ramen, which we'll talk about a little later, on the show. And he was an ex-convict who was known as a chef when he was in the penitentiary. His penitentiary actually had a riot. And so the book that he wrote is more of it's a memoir mixed with recipes. So what started this interest in prison food?
Well, I think when I moved here in 2014, I started volunteering at the jail. Every Monday, I went there for about 2 years. I worked with a women's group, and the administration approached me and said, "Hey, we've been thinking about gathering their recipes because we've noticed that these women especially are so incredibly creative. They can make something out of nothing. And why don't you kind of gather together some of the things they've been making and let's do a cookbook." And their hope was, which I really liked, let's distribute this cookbook to people who come in so that they can have access to the knowledge of previous jail inmates and make some stuff and eat a little, maybe not better, but happier.
Oh, wait. So they were wanting to distribute it to incoming inmates.
Yeah. They wanted it for
Welcome to
the
jail.
Good of everyone,
Here's your
right?
recipe book.
I mean, it's just one of those things where you have to not only know how to survive in prison and jail, but you have to know how to thrive and how to get by. And if you're missing your daily latte, I mean, what are you going to do? You have to, if somebody else has created a recipe, then you can use that recipe and not have to reinvent the wheel.
So let's talk about the food that the prison serves first, because the food that the prison serves is not that great. And this is kind of why this whole counter culinary world kind of started.
Yes, absolutely.
In the prison system. where is the food coming from? Like, I don't know a lot about it. I always assume that they have people that from the prison, like, working in the kitchen, but it's not. Is it kind of like the school systems here, where it's like they're cutting open bags and like throwing it into pots? And
the food that they create their recipes from comes from 3 places. The first place is from the commissary, where you pay to have extra food. Now, if your family or friends are not sending you any money, you can't buy anything from the commissary. You're out. Also, if you have friends who work in the kitchen, they can maybe put a few things down their shirt and bring it back to you. The third place is when it's time for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. If you just save the food, you can recreate it. There was one woman, I think, who was saving the French fries from every lunch and all her friends' French fries, and she made what she said were the most incredible mashed potatoes she had ever had by taking these leftover French fries from everybody's lunches and reconstituting them and putting seasoning in, and she said they were just delicious, and everyone agreed that they were so good. So those are kind of the 3 sources.
That's what they're cooking in their actual jail cell.
Those are ingredients.
What the food that the prison is actually serving them, what is that food like?
It tends to be very, very carb heavy. So there's a lot of bread. There's a lot of sandwiches. There's a lot of potatoes, meat potatoes, so different kinds of starches. They occasionally get a special meal, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, holidays like that. By and large, though, it is very carb heavy. The women especially gain a lot of weight, and they're very sensitive about that because carbs do that to you, you know. And so there's not a lot of fresh food that they get. They certainly don't get nice salads, a zucchini, something like that. So that's really lacking from their diet, and that's a shame because we do need to eat healthy no matter who we are. And a diet that is mainly protein and carb-based is really not going to get you where you need to be.
I have a question that you may not know the answer to. I know when I was in school, they would do trips to the prisons.
Yes.
And I guess this was a way to teach kids, like, not... Bob, y'all did not do that in your school?
No. Not even a little.
I want to feel like it was in high school in like our civics class or something. They would go to Angola, and then they would also go to St. Gabriel too. No,
nope, not
at Acadiana. Not happening there.
We went to a fire station and the Evangeline Made Bread Company. That's about it.
That's a learning lesson.
Well, yeah, we went, and I want to say it was probably civics class, and it was probably like, I guess maybe to teach us about the judicial system, but I feel like it was also partially like
scare you straight
kind of thing. Because I remember I didn't go when we went. I stayed home, but we were like told we could only wear certain things.
Yes,
but I remember them telling us that, because we would eat there too, and we would eat what the prison was serving, that at Angola it was like fried chicken, and it was really good fried chicken. Yes. Is that the same thing that they're serving the inmates? I would assume not.
Well, Angola is a bit of a different environment than the local jail downtown here. So I've been to Angola as well and have eaten with the prisoners. And again, I didn't get a lot of fresh food. I generally get a hamburger and some French fries.
Okay.
So, and I know they do have good fried chicken there as well.
Okay.
Down here at the jail, they do their best, but again, just by and large, what you're getting is some sort of cooked meat and a carb.
Okay.
You just don't get a lot of fresh food, even though the sheriff does have a garden out there near Karen Crow.
Yeah, because the inmates are working in. Yeah.
So there is some fresh food from time to time, but again, especially the ladies, they complain a lot about not getting fresh food. And in the Lafayette Parish Correctional Center, there is not a central cafeteria. The food is brought up to each level and up to each pod. So sometimes by the time it gets to your pod, it's already already cold. It's not incredibly appetizing. So this is not the freshest, fastest food you can get. From time to time, something probably tastes good, but they take it upon themselves to make things, and especially for celebrations like birthdays or anniversaries, they want to make cakes and cookies and desserts that they absolutely cannot get from breakfast, lunch, and dinner meals.
So they can make a cake in their in their jail cell.
Yes.
Would that be a family member bringing them like a Betty Crocker cake mix?
No.
Okay, so how does this work?
Well, a lot of the recipes, they start from things they buy from commissary, such as Little Debbie's or cookies.
Okay.
One of the most common recipes is to get cookies that are sort of like Oreos that have a cookie cracker outside and the filling inside. And you disassemble all the cookies. You take all the outside of the cookie parts and kind of melt them down with some warm shower water or something, and you can reconstitute that into a cake. And then the icing you can mix with a little bit of coffee, candy, something like that, and you can put that as a filling or as a topping. So they make their own desserts from other items, not from a baking mix. No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are there any one of the inmates that is maybe known for cooking and maybe like a chef there, and then people kind of go to them?
There is, but the thing about jails is that people move in and out so rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
But one woman I worked with, she called herself the Martha Stewart of jail.
Nice.
And she was fabulous. She had these coffee balls that everyone wanted, and so that recipe is in the cookbook as well. She had special little calendars for herself. She made it kind of Martha Stewart-y. And she was well known for those coffee balls and for making these just precious little desserts that everyone absolutely loved and begged her for. And also, cooking is a collaborative activity. It's not just one woman or one man collecting these supplies and making something. They really draw from everyone in their pod, and then they share.
Nice. So it's almost like bringing them together.
It's like a potluck.
kind of thing. Yeah,
Yes,
and
it
it's
absolutely is.
they're in this place together. The food isn't necessarily that great,
Yes.
so they're kind of it kind of gives them a sense of being, I guess, human almost. Because being incarcerated, you lose that humanity feeling. You feel like you're an animal in a cage.
Yeah, you lose
And
access to
yeah.
everything that makes you feel like a person, and especially like a woman, like a mother. So being able to cook something, to bake something that is unique and delicious is really special to them and very important.
If someone is coming into the prison system and they have certain dietary restrictions, do they
Yes.
take that into consideration?
They do. And it's largely
Is it only religious based?
religion.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I figured. Like, I figured if you were going in and you're like, I'm vegan
If
and
you're
gluten
vegan,
free.
you just have to pick from the tray and not eat the meat,
Yeah.
Now, that varies from institution to institution. Different facilities will take into account different things. It really depends.
All right, we are going to take another break, and when we come back, we have more with Amy Stearns. So come back to us. It is the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
She puts the wow, yum into words. It's the Lafayette Food Junkie herself on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffany Deku, and we were talking with Amy Stearns. She is a criminal justice professor at UL who has done food research on jail food. Bob, you had a question for her during the break.
What's probably a pretty dumb question, but do they have any way of heating things up?
There's no dumb question because a lot of people wonder how do people make it inside prison and jail, right? So many jails or prisons have a common microwave when it's working. That is one way to cook things. They're not always working, frankly. And then there's something called the stinger, which we had talked about. So a stinger is you can cobble one together with an electric cord and two razor blades. Do not try this at home, but you can plug this into the wall and boil water. You can also buy these stingers prefab at the commissary. I'm not sure if LPCC has them for sale. I don't recall the women ever saying they cooked with a stinger. But at some of the larger facilities, especially prisons, stingers are available to buy. And you can boil water with it and melt cheese and make coffee and soup. And
I didn't realize that they had microwaves in their pods. So do they sell popcorn, like microwave popcorn in the commissary? Or can their family bring them that?
Now, you have to be very careful what your family brings you. There's only certain things that can be allowed through. So more often it's people buying from commissary. Popcorn, I do not remember at all, and I don't recall anybody making it. So I'm not sure. Again, facilities are so different, whether they're parish run or state run, whether they're federal. or private, it makes such a big difference. So you'll see a huge variety of cooking implements and ability to buy certain types of food depending on where you are housed.
So let's talk about the prison cookbook that they actually hand out. You sent me a copy of it. I was looking through some of the recipes. It's a lot of ramen, a lot of summer sausage, and then a lot of eggs. And I was asking you, I was like, how are they getting these eggs?
Yes.
Like, do they sell the eggs? Are they hard-boiled eggs? Are they cooked eggs? You said the eggs are called hustle eggs for a reason.
Yes. Raw eggs are prime commodity. They're usually called hustle eggs because you got to hustle them. So that means maybe you have a friend that works in the kitchen that can hustle a few eggs out for you. It's, of course, not condoned, and we don't condone stealing. But really the only way to get raw eggs is to sneak some out.
And then they're able to do it. Like, if they get caught, like, with an egg, like, do they get in trouble?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you get written up for a variety of things, like wearing makeup or doing something with your hair you're not supposed to do. So I think a lot of the indiscretions, they sort of weigh the pros and cons of,
like, is it worth it?
Caught. Exactly. Yeah. And making something wonderful is usually very advantageous and worth the risk.
So were the inmates very forthcoming with these recipes? Were they excited to share them with you? Or were they kind of leery because you're an outsider asking about this?
No, they were extremely excited about what they had created and very proud of what they had created. One thing that I do I worked in prisons previously in Oklahoma, but I have family members who have been in jail and prison, and so I always share that. And I don't talk down to them or tell them that I'm researching them or anything like that. I go in to have some fun with them and to let them feel like they're people again, and to ask them, hey, what are you doing in here to survive? And, I'm so proud of you. And what can I do with you over the next hour that will make you feel better and calm down a little bit and de-stress and make you feel like you're a woman, you're a mother, you're a person. After all, people in jail, especially jail is a short-term stay. These are people in our community who are going to be out walking around in a few months to a couple of years. They have gotten caught doing something that maybe the rest of us have also done, but we haven't been caught. And they are a part of this community, and they should continue to be made a part of this community. So yes, they were extremely proud of their recipes. There's one in there that's an apple pie that the woman, when she submitted that apple pie recipe, she said, "This is the best apple pie I have ever had in my life." And everybody else in their groups was like, "Holla, yes, absolutely, the best apple pie we have ever had." And I could not believe it. It's made with like Cinnamon Toast Crunch that's kind of melted down and canned apples.
Oh my God.
I just thought it was so
Bob,
good.
we have to do this one weekend.
I'm down.
Like, we need to make this apple pie recipe.
My plan is to do some YouTube videos where I cook some of these recipes.
Yeah.
I just don't have time, but I would love to do it. And I have made some before and taken to conferences with me, and it's delicious. Very sweet always. And always ramen based. If it's not sweet, it's ramen based. But delicious.
Something that popped into my head as you were talking just now, and then what we were talking about before, we talked about how I'm in mental health counseling, and I'm kind of very interested in the correlation of like cooking as a form of therapy, especially for those with anxiety and depression. And in this sense, in this world, like cooking is therapeutic for them because it's, it's healing, it's normalizing, and that came to mind. So
it absolutely does. The other thing that I find so fascinating, you have such a lack of control when you're in an institution.
And it's something that you can control.
Yes, you can control it. So no matter what kind of food you're given, the schedule you put on, what you have to wear, what you have to do, you can take control of one aspect of your life in prison or jail. You can cook something that reminds you of home, reminds you of your children, gets you to have a sense of community while you're in jail or prison. And that is kind of a saving grace for a lot of people, that they have just a modicum of control that they can exert. And it's through food a lot of the times.
Something else that I just thought about is cooking utensils in order to cook this.
Yes.
What are they using to chop?
Trash bags.
Yes, I knew
you can
trash
chop
bags.
things with your ID. So they always have to have an ID. You can chop things with an ID. Very dully. Of course, you can't have any kind of sharp instruments.
Right. I was going to say, are they making shanks, but they're using them to cook with?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
They are so innovative and so creative. It just continually blows my mind the things they come up with to cook with. So you take, sometimes for mixing, you take 2 cups and you just go back and forth with your ingredients because you don't have a bowl and a spoon.
That's your mixer.
So, yeah, that's your mixer. A trash bag usually is your bowl. So they use what they have. They save every single thing they get, and they use that. When they have to crush cookies, they save the package, and they crush all the cookies in the package, or they crush the ramen in the package. So whatever they are given, they use that to cook with. And again, just extremely innovative.
That's fascinating that they've like made like it's like the survival mode kick in, and they're like, we'll figure it out. Like they want this to happen. They're going to figure out how to do it. I'm a fan of Orange is the New Black. And one of the things on the show was prison hooch. And is that a thing? I'm sure not here because
it's
probably not
here that I've heard of.
Fresh produce, but
right. Okay, so prison hooch is a thing. I am currently doing a taxonomy of prison cookbooks, and several of them have prison hooch in it. It does not sound appealing to me at all. I think only if you're desperate you would do this.
In Orange and the New Black, they were mixing it in a toilet.
Yes.
So I was automatically like, nope, nope.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well,
you're in jail and things change in jail. So
I don't know what to say about that. I haven't personally talked to anyone who has actually made any kind of alcoholic beverage in prison or jail. I know that it is done. I know that, they need to cope just like we all need to cope. But it does not sound pleasant.
It doesn't sound really good at all.
No, it does not.
All right, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking specifically some prison cookbooks that are out on the market. So if anyone's interested out there and learning more about this, there are actual books that you can purchase. And then I'm going to ask each of you, if you had to go to prison, what would be the one food item that you could not live without, which is almost like your death row meal kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's something that we normally ask people on the show is about their death row meal. This is kind of like the opposite side of it. Like, what is the one, like if you went to jail, what would be the one food item that you would miss the most? All right, come back to us. It is the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Welcome back to the Lafayette Food Junkie Show on News Talk 96.5 KPEL. I'm your host, Tiffany Deku, and we've been talking with Amy Stearns, who's a criminal justice professor at UL, who's been doing food research on prison food. So now we're going to talk about the cookbooks that are out there on the market and kind of talk a little bit about inmate cooking and pop culture. So I mentioned prison ramen, and that the forward of that is by Samuel L. Jackson. Yes. Yeah, he did the forward on it. Would you consider that to be the most like popular of the cookbooks?
I would, mainly because when I've gone places, I like to tour prisons.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Eastern State in Philadelphia, and they had prison ramen on the shelf there for sale.
Oh wow! Okay,
it's widely available. It's a slick, commercialized, mass-produced cookbook. Modeled after mainstream cookbooks. So I think it's probably one of the more notable, and it has honestly so many famous people giving little vignettes of either their prison experience or their whatever their tie-in with the criminal justice system is. It's a very interesting and well-done book.
So the author was known for his prison ramen, and he said that since he's been out, he has not been able to get his ramen to taste the same as it did when he was in jail. And then there's also a story that he tells that the jail that he was in had a riot, and he made them all prison ramen, and it kind of like, I guess, like brought them together. I don't think it like de-escalated the situation or anything, but it was kind of like this poignant moment that he told in the book about like what was happening, and then like everyone's just like starving, and then like he makes this big vat of prison ramen in a trash bag and
Wow.
like starts like passing it out to people. So I want to read it now. Like now I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't realize, like when I was researching for the show, I realized I saw that Samuel L. Jackson had did like the forward of it. So the other one that I saw that was really impressive was Commissary Kitchen,
Yes.
my infamous prison cookbook by the rapper Prodigy,
Yeah,
who
that's the
I have
one I
no
brought
idea
in.
who that is.
I don't either,
but you brought it.
Yeah.
You brought the cookbook.
beautiful.
And it is a
It's
beautiful.
beautiful.
That one, I noticed that the pictures were like cookbook
Yeah.
That
quality
is really good.
pictures
That's good porn.
of prison food.
Yeah.
And he talks about like how he was able to stay on his diet and everything in there. And so he became like a little chef while he was behind bars. So do you know what else can you tell us about that book in particular?
This book in particular is fascinating. I think the one thing to point out about these cookbooks, especially these really nice ones, you have to remember that they are not sole authored. In every introduction of all the cookbooks, whether they are collaboratively written or not, the authors talk about how these recipes come from the other guys in the prison or the other ladies in the prison. So every recipe, this is kind of the way I look at these cookbooks as well. All these recipes are a collaboration. So a lot of times, and I don't think Prodigy Johnson mentions this too often. He just kind of gives the recipes. But in Prison Ramen especially, it talks about how we all got together and came up with this recipe. We tried this recipe. It's not like when you're in your kitchen and you're wanting to try a recipe and maybe just try it out on your boyfriend or your kids. This is always something that you share with everyone. So for recipes to make it into these cookbooks, and there are several out there that you can buy on Amazon and on Lulu.com. The point of them is to share and to form community, which I think is very interesting. Food is actually very symbolic, and it does a lot more than just sustain us and keep us alive. It can help us establish identity, help us with relationships, help us with community, provide us with
That wellness factor.
meaning. Absolutely,
Yeah.
wellness factor. Yeah. And so you talking about the prison riot and him kind of calming everybody down with a trash bag full of ramen, that's absolutely true, because meals are how we come together. Meals and eating, it's so obvious that it's overlooked, but it's the one thing that we all have in common. And everybody needs to eat, and everybody finds a sense of purpose, identity, community through eating, which is what is so fascinating about these cookbooks.
Did you bring some other ones that you want to mention really quickly?
I did. This is one of the originals. This is one of the oldest that I have. It's from Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, Washington, the Convict Cookbook. It has lots of little cartoons in it and lots of recipes. The other thing about this particular, the Convict Cookbook, which you can buy on Amazon, some of the recipes are at home. And I found a lot of cookbooks have some at-home recipes and some in-cell recipes. And what this tells me is that, cooking in prison and jail is sometimes the same type of cooking that somebody who is really, really budget conscious is doing. Some of the cookbooks even say that. I brought another one from Kevin Bullington. It's called Creative Snacks, Meals, Beverages, and Desserts You Can Make Behind Bars. But then it says it's a cookbook for others on a tight budget looking to put the fun back into food.
That's an interesting way to think about it, because a lot of the commissary stuff, you could easily go to the Dollar Tree and find that those items there. And so you could, if you were on a tight enough budget, go there and be able to make these recipes. That is a fascinating correlation.
It is.
That you just
find
mentioned.
It so interesting that I think I'm analyzing 13 cookbooks right now, and about half of them make that connection with the home cook and say, this is a very inexpensive meal that I believe your kids would love. Or even some of these in the Convict Cookbook say this would be a great camping recipe.
Okay,
so you could take this camping,
that would be another idea.
So it kind of, for me, it's a really nice tie-in to remind us that inmates are people too, and that the things that they are interested in, the things that they are doing, are also the things that we as a whatever uninstitutionalized population can also partake in. So it's just fascinating to me.
So typically I ask guests on the show what their death row meal is. Today I'm going to ask, what is the food item that you could not live without? Bob, you can go first.
It would absolutely be boudin.
Yeah, like that's I was kind of with you on that.
I mean, I can barely go a week without boudin, so I would feel it.
And what about you?
I'm sorry.
Look, okay, side note real quick. Your boy is so obsessed with BOs that he had a dream about them. Tell them about your dream.
I had a dream that we were moving some reason away, and I had quit my job, and I went and got a job at BO's just so I could learn how to make the boudin.
So when we moved, he would be able to make the boudin.
Okay, I moved here 4 years ago, and so I have had boudin, and I'm like, it's interesting.
It's not for you.
It's interesting. It's not for me. I like it. I'll eat just about anything. But for me, I have a rather severe caffeine addiction. And not only that, but it has to be really good coffee. So
like really good coffee.
I like to buy the beans, and I like to grind them, and I like to do I like to heat up my milk and froth it. And so I know when I was down at the jail every week when we would do coffee, the ladies would just be so happy that they weren't having to drink instant coffee, that I could make some, we had bags of community coffee we could bring in and make for them. And I just can't do without coffee. I just can't. I guess I would learn, but instant coffee and instant creamer to me give me a stomachache. I gotta have my real stuff.
I think for me, it would be cheese, like fancy cheese, like not like cheddar cheese. Because a lot of the recipes in the book did have cheese, but it was like American cheese, and I do not like American cheese.
You can probably get Laughing Cow cheese at most of the commissary. There's
or string cheese, maybe
in
even.
Orange is the New Black. If you've read that book, she has a recipe for prison cheesecake in there, which I've made with my students a number of times, and it has Laughing Cow cheese in it. Okay. You can buy that.
Well, that's very interesting.
I mean, you could at least have your Laughing Cow cheese.
I didn't know. Like, I'm trying to think about, and just like when you, God, and then if you got out, like what would be the first thing that you would want to have? Boudin would be for me.
A beer.
A beer.
Yes.
You're awesome.
Yes,
a beer.
Yeah.
Yes.
A beer followed by coffee.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe a coffee stout,
Yes, a Rev coffee stout.
Yes.
Now, the cookbooks, do they have, I've been to the Angola Prison Rodeo, and they have that craft fair when they do it. Do they have the cookbooks there sometimes?
I'm not sure that Angola has put together a cookbook.
They may not have.
I don't believe that they have. I haven't found one.
There was some really amazing, like there was one guy that made his own board game.
Those crafts, I hate to even call them crafts. What they do there is amazing.
Absolutely.
Just amazing.
I forgot to mention The Last OG, which is also when we were talking about this topic. So The Last OG is a show that's on TBS, and Tracy Morgan is in it. And he went to prison, and while he was in prison, he became a chef, and he started making food like in his jail cell. Well, when he got out of prison, he decided that he wanted to go, that he was an amazing chef, and he wanted to go, to become a chef in a fancy restaurant. So he's in New York. He went to like this 5-star restaurant and brought them his dessert, which was like this, it was like a candy bar made up of all of these cereals and like marshmallows and stuff. So he brought the guy a sample of it to be like, you should hire me to work in your restaurant. And the guy kind of like looked at him like he was crazy and was like, no. Well, later on in the show, in the series, he goes back to that restaurant and they serve him for dessert his bar that he had given the guy to try when he had went in there. So that's like showing, tying it into pop culture there. I don't think either one of y'all have seen the show.
I've seen the previews. It looks really
so
funny.
that's all. They don't really like talk about that a whole lot. So his fancy job that he ended up getting is he became a barista at like their version of a Starbucks is where he's working in the show because he couldn't get into a fancy restaurant. But that's an interesting point too. I'm wondering how many inmates come out with working with job placement, go into the culinary world.
Mm-hmm.
Do you?
I don't know those
Yeah.
statistics. That would be an interesting thing to look at. I know that not many of them, being able to work in the kitchen is a privilege, and not many people are afforded that privilege. So most of this cooking is not done as, well, this is my job.
Yeah,
in the
this
jail
is
or
like
prison.
not. This
It's
is like
just
a.
like I
yeah.
sit in my cell all day, and
Right.
so this is what I'm going to do with the food that I have. But that's certainly an aspect that should be emphasized among people that make these recipes.
Amy, thank you so much for
Thank
joining us
you.
tonight. It
Thank
has
you.
been a pleasure. That's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Join us next week, Sunday at 6 p.m. This is Tiffany Deku on News Talk 96.5 KPEL, and this is the Lafayette Food Junkie Show. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy eating, Acadiana.